folks, welcome back to Three Barrow Farm. My name is Amy and I live here in central Victoria, Australia with my family of 5, and it is October. Towards the end of October, we're almost, at the end. Next week will be the last week of October pretty much, and things are starting to go to seed. So this morning I have harvested some coriander, a big bunch of coriander, which is going to seed. I am going to let some of the coriander in my garden go to seed because I want to harvest the seed. And I really love the flowers of the coriander and how they attract the ladybirds to my garden. And I see them, the little babies on the coriander often, so it's really beneficial to let it go to seed. I've also harvested some lettuce, so I will eat this for lunch today. And I've harvested lots of spinach, which is starting to go to seed. So they're starting to stem up like this. And once they start to do this, you know that they're heading to make their seed. And, some of these leaves are massive. I'm really impressed with the spinach and what has happened after I gave this spinach on all my greens a little sprinkle of dolomite. Dolomite brings the calcium into the soil and it helps keep the bugs away because the bugs don't like it when the plants have the correct amount of calcium in them. So I got out here this morning at 7 o'clock and it was just beautiful, and the air is, was sort of warm enough that I immediately took off my jumper that I was wearing. And, moving around, you definitely get warmer at this time of year. And then, of course, the sun comes out and it's gone behind some clouds right now. So I've taken my hat off just to have a chat to you. But it is quite bitey when that sun is out. And I know even though it is behind the clouds right now, I could possibly get sunburnt. It's now maybe 8:30. I have been weeding, harvesting, and I've also pulled out, right where I'm sitting, there was a large celery plant and there were some cabbages here that went to seed. So I took them out to my sheep and they enjoyed eating them, which is great. There's always someone on the farm who will eat the things that have gone to seed, but definitely I will be cooking with these things today. Even though they are going to seed, they are still perfectly fine. The spinach and the coriander leaves are perfect to use. So I wanted to chat to you a little bit about what I use when I'm harvesting and when the best time is to harvest. So the morning is the best time to harvest all the leafy greens. So in the morning they have the most water inside their leaves and they're less likely to droop once you've harvested them. Of course, I always harvest and put them straight into water, especially in summertime when I'm harvesting lettuce, because they can just get dehydrated quite quickly. And so I use all sorts of things. I generally have some bigger buckets that I got from Bunnings, but I can't find them. They're being used somewhere else on the farm and I need to purchase some more and maybe label them, just specifying that they are harvest buckets. But obviously they're being used over winter when we haven't been harvesting a lot of produce and they've gone missing. So I'm using some of these yogurt containers. They have water in them. So this coriander and the lettuce are in water. The lettuce is immersed in water. The water is quite close to the top of the bucket, whereas the coriander, I've only got it filled to about there. And then because I don't have a lot of buckets on hand and because there is a large amount of spinach, I've grabbed one of my kitchen bowls. This is just a stainless steel bowl and it's got water in it, probably up to about there, and it's keeping the spinach nice and crisp. And I can keep this in here till lunchtime or even dinner time. This will stay really nice most of the day in there, just because I have harvested it at the beginning of the day and it's still got all that moisture in the leaves. This coriander kind of looks like it's drooping. Some of the stems are bending over. This is not because I've harvested it, it is rather because I had the netting over this bed and the netting was pushing all of these long stalks over, so that is the reason why they're bending over. So I'm going to go and take these to the back of the house in the shade. So the back of our house faces south and these are going to stay nice in the shade while I continue to work in the garden this morning, and then I will process these later today. So while I'm working away in the garden this morning, I have these buckets or hummus containers of water. So I've got some water in these, and I can just chuck anything in these that I harvest while I'm weeding and taking care, moving through the garden. And so I've just harvested these beetroots, and I'm just gonna, this container hasn't got any water in it, I'm just gonna chuck a little bit of water from this one into here just to keep them fresh while I'm working along here. So right here I've got my carrots, and as you can see, they've come up really nicely and they're a bit thick in this area. What I like to do is leave them. I thin them out when the carrots are really sort of tiny, so we get some baby carrots. So I don't thin them out yet. This is the problem with taking the netting up also, is the dogs just decide to walk over, but luckily the carrots are quite strong. So I am going to take out all the tomato seedlings. Hello, darling. Hey, where's your bone? So I cut up some bones from our lambs this morning, and one of our dogs likes to hog them all, even though I've given you about 8 bits of bone. Hey? Or are you just wanting the love this morning? Hey? But Luna, my other Jack Russell, oh, don't do that on the carrot seeds, seedlings. So Luna will take all of the bones, won't she? And she'll hide them from you. Hey? I'm sure there's a bone or two over there. You probably just want a little cuddle, hey? So I've got lots of tomatoes coming up. So here's a tomato seedling, and they are in their second leaf. There's also big bundles of them amongst the carrots. So I'm just taking those out, throwing them over on the grass or on the straw right here. And I've also got a pumpkin plant coming up. So it's coming up from the compost that I put down on here before I planted the carrots. I'm going to try and lift it up without lifting up too many of the carrots. Let's see if I can pop the carrots seeds back in there, seedlings. Okay, and now I've got this pumpkin plant. I've got another one over there and another one coming up here as well in the pathway. So what I'm going to do, last year I planted pumpkins along this Rio. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to plant them on the Rio. These fennels are going to come out eventually. They're getting thicker and bigger. They're looking really good, actually. And then the pumpkins will take over this space once the fennel has been taken out. So I'm going to dig a hole here. All right, so I have a tomato growing here too. It's actually quite nice and big. I'm tempted to leave it there, so I might. What I want to do is I want to plant there's a ladybird in the dripper just here. So I might leave this tomato plant to climb up here, but what I want to do is I want to plant this pumpkin underneath the dripper or close to the dripper. It's nice and moist in here, so I'm just going to plant it in here and see how it goes. Okay, so I've planted the pumpkin here, and I've also got, there's a sunflower coming up over here. I will probably chop back this wormwood a bit just to get it out of the way of that sunflower. And here is the tomato plant that's coming up. So I might leave that. I'm going to plant the other pumpkin right here, so under this stripper here. And that should go well there, hopefully. And then, look, there's another ladybird. They really, really love the fennel too. So I'll plant another pumpkin here that's coming up in the carrot patch. So I've got one pumpkin here, another one here, then that tomato plant, and another one over here. So what these pumpkin plants will do is I will tie them to this trellis and they will keep going all the way up here, and then the fruits will hang off the vine. All right, so I'm just weeding the rest of this patch here, just picking out any bits and pieces that are in the compost that I don't really want in my garden. So sometimes, because we put the vacuum cleaner dust into our compost, sometimes there are little bits and pieces that we've sucked up in the vacuum cleaner, and I try to get most of it out. Well, there's a piece of glass even, so yeah, I try to get most of it out, but sometimes it gets through the sieve. So I'm just pulling out the rest of these weeds while I skim through. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop some manure on top of this. It's looking nice and lush. This soil is just looking really, really happy. So I'm going to put a little bit of newspaper around the edges of this bed, but I'm not going to be putting it on the middle where I'm going to be planting very soon. Like today, I'm going to be planting some items, some seedlings in this part of the garden. But I'm going to put some manure down, and yeah, it's gonna feed this soil really nicely and feed the plants that I'm going to be planting in here. But I'm just going to continue on moving through the garden today. It's going to be 28 degrees, so it's going to get quite warm. Right now it's just beautiful, it's just perfect, and I love getting up at the start of the day and getting out here first thing. It's one of my favourite things to do in the morning, is to be in the garden. So I want to get as much work done as I can right now, and then later on when it's too hot, I can go inside and I can process the vegetables that I have harvested this morning. So I made a few different pestos with the spinach and coriander that I harvested. I made one with, it said to make the pesto with pine nuts, but I always toast up some sunflower seeds and sometimes some pepitas as well. So I did one with the sunflower seeds and pepitas, and then I did another with walnuts. And I really like the sunflower pepita one, but I will put both of the recipes down below. You just pop all of the ingredients in a blender, or I put mine in my Thermomix, but you just put it into a blender and whiz it all up together. As simple as that. And I've frozen all of them except for one batch, which I've put in the fridge to make a pesto pasta one night. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below, and I will see you next time. See you later.